So Lloyd told me I have 6 minutes. I hope his clock is accurate. What is a minute anyway? The official definition is 60 seconds, but what's an official second? I mean, is there like some ultimate second out there that never changes? Well, in fact, there is. It's based on atomic behavior measured by an atomic clock, the atomic behavior of the cesium atom. What about length? Do we have an ultimate definition of length? Well, yes, we do too. It involves how far light travels in a fraction of a second. In fact, there's an ultimate definition for almost all of the 7 base units of the SI, the International Measuring System, with one conspicuous exception, and that is the kilogram. This is one where to measure, to determine the measurement unit, we still have to stick it in a balance pan. It's kept in a vault in the basement of a laboratory outside Paris, whose room is opened with 3 keys that are supposed to be in the hands of 3 people from 3 different countries. But this celebrity kilogram is on the way out. And how and why is a long and interesting story that I'll talk now for 5 minutes about. And in my gift exchange, there's an article about this. Now, I'm a philosopher of science. I love stories that to understand them, you need to know a little bit of history, a little bit of physics, a little bit of math, a little bit of science, and measurement is one of them. Early measurement units came from the human body. Everybody's got body parts that make pretty good rough and ready measurement standards, such as feet and heartbeats and things the width of a human hair, except for me, but most people. So it makes, but those have drawbacks, so it makes sense to take an artifact and say that's the standard. And once upon a time, every community on the planet did that and went about it differently. In Africa, the Akans made little sculptures to weigh out gold dust as currency in elaborate social rituals. This had drawbacks, including the fact that even the simplest transactions took forever. Ancient Chinese imperial documents coupled length measures to musical pitch via the use of standard flutes used to set the base pitch at performances at court. That meant that if you changed the length measure, you changed the pitch. And this had disadvantages. In 347 AD, a bureaucrat changed the length measure, and people complained, "You made the pitch too high," and the bureaucrat was fired. That's a true story. Measurement standards could be used to exploit people. Government agents would buy long and heavy and sell short and light. The corruption of measurement inspectors was one of the major factor in events leading to the French Revolution. So when scientific academies were established in the 17th century, one of their first tasks was to discover ultimate measurement units that wouldn't change. The 2 main candidates were the seconds pendulum, that is the length that created a pendulum that would swing one way in a second. The French took that path. The British took that path. The French decided to measure some fraction of the circumference of the Earth. The British took one path, the French the other, but they made artifact standards just in case. Pretty good thing too, because in 1834 the House of Parliament burning the imperial standards to a crisp, and the pendulum method turned out not to be accurate enough to be usable. The French, meanwhile, discovered that they too had made mistakes. They had measured the globe wrong, and there were other flaws in the scheme. What happens if an asteroid crashes into the Earth? How would you define the meter then? The first person to experimentally connect distance and light was a philosopher, C.S. Peirce. He connected a meter to the wavelength of light by this famous formula that connects length and distance. Meanwhile, the metric system spread throughout the globe. At first, it was imposed with bayonets through French colonialism. Eventually, using the metric system was a precondition for belonging to the modern world, which is why the People's Republic of China adopted it at a time when they were rejecting anything else Western. The treaty, the meter, in 1875, the first true international treaty, was signed by the U.S., established the International Bureau of Weights and Measures, the BIPM, and soon the metric system was used by all industrial nations with rational government leadership. Okay, so you're asking what happened here? Well, we tried. One argument had to do with simplicity. I mean, this is just the length measures of the English system. Compare that to the French system, and they use this. The metric system uses this the series on all of its measurements. But American engineers counter-argued that they had built all these machines based in inches and pounds, to which to replace would cost a lot of money. And in America, money talks. But there was a bizarre side as well. I'm sure you're shocked to hear that American politicians hate reform. They love nothing more than a campaign in which they can use wild rhetoric, made-up facts, fantasy history, religious appeals, smarmy patriotism, and wacky props to oppose reform. Now, in the 1880s, U.S. anti-metric crusaders claimed that God had shown us the true measure units via a Hebrew architect who installed these measures in the Great Pyramid for the edification of the Anglo-Saxon peoples to fight against the atheistic Mediterranean types. And the wacky, now you think I'm making this up? Here was the official mouthpiece. It was the Fox News network of the day. The Great Pyramid is, the wacky prop was the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid, after all, is all American. It's on every dollar bill. Open your wallets. Now, the pseudoscience behind the Great Pyramid, which was a sort of a fad of the day, was exposed, among others, by Martin Gardner in chapter 15 of Fads and Fallacies. But unfortunately, his work didn't enable us to get the metric system. By the way, I wish, Martin Gardner was a great campaigner against pseudoscience, and I wish there were more pseudoscience talks at a meeting like this. So back to the improvement of the metric system. After Peirce published his work, Michelson and Morley were doing their famous breakthrough measurement of the ether drift of light, and they realized that their instrument, an interferometer, was perfect for that and could substantially improve Peirce's measurement. This impressed the hell out of the BIPM, which investigated a formal way to tie the meter to light, and they officially redefined the meter from an artifact to light in 1960. The second followed, tied to a transition of cesium. Now there's only one outstanding one, which is the kilogram. But this too is en route to being redefined. They found a way to ditch the balance pan and redefine the meter in terms of Planck's constant. Here's the instrument used. That will lead to a complete redefinition of the SI in terms of absolute standards. Now the system is now perfect, but something's lost. How do we explain to our kids like something what measuring out weight is? So there's a loss, I think, of public understanding of science here, but that's another story that you can find here and partly a little bit in your exchange gift. So how did I do? My clock says that I'm on time.
Yeah, unfortunately mine is suffering from gravitational redshift.
Damn.